All right. Well, without further ado, we will get started on what we're here for, which is to continue our review of the Motivation Manifesto by Brendon Burchard, 9 Declarations to Claim Your Personal Power. So we have covered the first part, which was really an introduction, explaining the 9 declarations, a quick summary of all 9 of them. Oh, we have somebody else joining us. Hold on. I'll just admit her.
Oh, Cash is here.
Yes.
I was just telling her about how great your book club is.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the group, Cassia.
Hello, hello, hello. Nice to see you guys.
That's quite a collection of faces you have on your picture there behind you.
Oh, you might know some of those people. Yeah, that picture I was taken during the celebration call. So nice to see you, Tony. I think this is my 3rd time ever seeing you.
Yes, I know. I've seen you on some other calls.
So I wanted to jump in to see if you are real.
I'm real. I'm a real person. I think I'm real. Let me just touch. Hang on. I'm here. I'm real.
Good.
I'm not a robot, I promise.
And I think I met Stan before, but it was probably ages ago. I don't remember when I met you, but I remember your place, your face.
You was probably here with Tony, or maybe it was Carly.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Could have been on Carly. I think it might have been on Carly's group, actually. Yeah. Anyway, good to see you, and welcome to the call this morning. So we are reviewing the Motivation Manifesto by Brendon Burchard, and we have been reviewing it for a few weeks now, so working our way through it. So we are currently, we've just read, for this week's preparation, we read chapters 7 and 8 of part 2. So just explaining what we've covered so far was the introduction. Section 1 was outlining his thoughts on human nature, on freedom, fear, and motivation, those 3 chapters. And then section 2 is working through the 9 declarations. So it's like a manifesto for life, and it's sort of loosely based, I suppose, on the American Constitution. There's quite a few references to that, but it's written in that form of we shall declare that we shall do this. So he's looking at how we're going to improve our lives overall. And so the first chapter of section 2 was we shall meet life with full presence and power. So all about actually being present, which so many of these self-help books would refer to, particularly books like The Power of Now, all about focusing on being present, not feeling guilty or worrying about stuff that's happened in the past you can't do anything about, not stressing about what may or may not happen in the future, but actually being present in the moment and having full presence and full power because of that. Oh, suddenly we have people coming in from a few different places. I'll just let these people in. Just bear with me a second. So we have Faith and Sandra joining us. So that's for the first time, I think these people are joining. So Faith, we have Faith on the line. Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Faith?
I can.
Welcome to the call this morning.
Thanks for letting us in.
No worries. And we have Sandra as well.
We do.
Hello, how are you going?
Having a chance to say hello. Yeah, good.
And just
did you say this morning? Where are you?
Let's just get an idea. Let's just go around the group. I'm hosting the call this morning from Perth, Western Australia. And where are you from, Sandra?
I'm in Canada, near Toronto.
Excellent. And Faith, where are you calling from?
I am a Southern Belle in South Carolina in the USA.
Excellent. And Cassia, where are you this morning?
This morning, I'm in Yakima Valley, Washington State. So,
well, say morning in Perth time. It's probably evening. Is it your time? Washington State. Cool.
Yes, it's 4:40. p.m.
Right. And we've got Wendy calling in from New York.
Yeah.
We've got Yanni in California. And we've got Stan here in Perth, Western Australia, just up the road from me, the other side of Perth. So good, what, an hour's drive or something like that. Awesome.
What time are you in the morning
Just
there,
re-
Tony?
Just round the corner.
Just around the corner. Everything in Australia is just around the corner, whether it's 5 minutes around the corner or 200 kilometers. Yeah, we joke about that one. Standard Aussie fare. Yeah, so it's just after 7:40 in the morning here in Perth, and
Okay.
looking like it's going to be a nice bright sunny day. So that's cool. All right, so just to quickly recap, we are working our way through the Motivation Manifesto by Brendon Burchard. We are coming towards the end of it, though. We are on section 2, chapters 7 and 8. We've covered this week, and next week we'll be covering the last chapter 9 and then doing a bit of a general overview of the book. So if you want to tune in again for that, you'll catch the sort of the full review of the whole thing and what we thought about it. But what we've covered in chapters 7 and 8 are 2 very powerful chapters. Just recapping that the introduction was about an explanation of what he's called the Declaration of Personal Power, which is an overview of the 9 declarations that he's come up with. And then he's cut on section 1 is all about human nature. So he's given an overview or an introduction to how we as human beings function in terms of our attitudes and our tendency towards or our desire for freedom, our tendency to let fear get in the way, and then talks about motivation in general terms. And then section 2, which we've been working our way through, is the 9 declarations. So the first one was we shall meet life with full presence and power. And just as I said that, there you were present. You and Sandra and Faith just appeared out of nowhere with full presence and power.
Well, Wendy invited us.
And then chapter 2 of section 2 was we shall reclaim our agenda. So rather than being blown around by the requirements of everybody else around us, we shall take control and take power of our own lives and take responsibility for it, reclaiming our agenda of what we want to achieve. Chapter 3 was a very powerful one. I know Wendy particularly commented on how much it resonated with her. We shall defeat our demons. So going back through those things that have been holding you back and overcoming our fears and moving forwards. Chapter 4 was we shall advance with abandon. And chapter 5 was we shall practice joy and gratitude. Gratitude being one of those key components of a happier life. You start with gratitude, feeling happy for or grateful for what you have already. And it doesn't mean you can't aspire to have more, but it certainly puts a whole different filter on the way that you look through the lens of life. That you start with a point or an attitude of gratitude for what you already have. Very, very powerful. And that in itself brings joy. That brings a realization that you know things could always be a lot worse. So, and a lot of people, other people have it a lot worse. Chapter 6 was we shall not break integrity. So very much another book that we reviewed a while back was the 4 Agreements with Don Miguel Ruiz. And one of the opening agreements there was that we shall keep our word. When we say we're going to do something, it's important that we do it to maintain our integrity, and both for ourselves so that we know we can trust ourselves to follow through with things, but also for other people around us that are impacted by our decisions and so on. So then we come to where we're up to, which was we shall amplify love, chapter 7. So I'm just going to speed through a few of the key points that I picked out there. Bear with me as I just find that chapter again. So just to get a quick idea, we've already gone through the earlier people on the call. Cassia, have you had a chance to read this book at all, or just to get an idea?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's no problem. Well, I'm going to pick out the key points for you anyway, and then we'll throw it open for discussion. Sandra, have you had a chance to look at this book at all?
Not that particular one. I've done a lot of work with the Proctor Gallagher, and I'm doing some Neville Goddard right now, and certainly the 4 agreements I've been into. So a lot of similar work, and the 12-step program for many years. So
Excellent. Well done.
A lot of overlap.
Yep, for sure. You will find that the more you cover these books that we've been working through, you will find there are a lot of overlaps and a lot of people saying the same thing but in a slightly different way. And that's the power of these books, is that just the certain way that a particular author phrases something may suddenly resonate with you and have a real impact on you, when you might have heard that same message numerous times from other people, but for some reason either you weren't ready to hear it, or it just didn't quite register the way that they said it or the way they expressed it. And that's
Right.
the beauty of this sort of thing. And also the power of repetition. You hear the same message a few times, and suddenly it's like the universe is tapping away there, and suddenly it breaks through and you go, oh, now I get it. Okay, Faith, have you had a chance to read the book at all?
Well, can you say the title and the author again, please?
The Motivation Manifesto. And the author is Brendon Burchard.
And that is the young man that did things with Louise Hay.
He probably has. I'm not aware of it as such, but he would have. He's that kind of. He is a motivational speaker. He's very, very almost evangelical. Has quite powerful rhetoric. He's a really impressive speaker, and full of enthusiasm and energy. So
even though he looks like a boy.
Yes, he does look very young. That's true. So yeah, probably who you're thinking of. Like myself,
I'm familiar with that book, and I haven't read it, but you know what? I read a lot of things he has written, and I'm familiar with him. I even listen to him when he does some little lives for the Hay Network, and everyone I would encourage highly to join the Hay Network. It's free, and a lot of good free information comes up on it. Yeah. And if I might add to the similar message in the teaching, I mean, the Bible itself has 4 guys who have books named after them, telling the same story to try to reach people with a different angle, or as we'd say in the South, your head hard. So sometimes we got to repeat and repeat.
Yep, that's for sure. Some of us are slow learners. That's definitely true. All right, well, I think you'll definitely resonate with this chapter, because this is We Shall Amplify Love. So he says, it opens with, there is no beauty in the world more perfect, more awe-inspiring, more human and transfixing than unfiltered, unashamed love. So this word love, it has a multitude of meanings. I'm sure if we asked everyone on the call what it meant to them, and you'd probably come up with a whole heap of different definitions. But he says, I think this puts it really well, to stand emotionally open before the world and give of our hearts without fear of hurt, attachment, or demand of reciprocity. This is the ultimate act of human courage. This is the ultimate experience of personal freedom. Something we've talked about, we've mentioned a few times, Viktor Frankl, and the survivor of the concentration camp, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. Very, very powerful book if you haven't read that one. No one can take away your personal choice. You can have circumstances affect you, but no one can choose how you react to them other than you, how you respond other than you. So that is the ultimate freedom that we have, is our power of choice, because the same thing can happen to 2 different people, and one can allow it to consume them, or become angry or hostile or enraged, or all the negative emotions, and go into that sort of negative spiral. Or another person can take it in their stride and not hate, not turn to anger or jealousy or rage or any of those sort of negative things. So this is the ultimate act of human courage, and it is courageous. Sometimes it might be the hard choice to continue with the concept of love. You know, in other words, if someone does you wrong, does that mean that you then hate them, or you then turn on them, or think badly of them? Or do you go, well, that's their journey, it's not my journey? Do you allow it to sort of wash away, let it go? Stan will be familiar with that one, Let It Go. I can't remember, it's one of the theme songs of one of the kids' movies.
That'd be Frozen.
Thank you, Stan.
I've got boys, so we don't sing that.
No, I was going to say that no one needs to break into song unless you particularly want to. So with love's transcendent power, he says, we can finally reach those magnificent fields of human empathy, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, generosity, and courage. All very emotive words and very, very positive words. He says, love is a divine energy, always present, accessible, and flowing. So very interesting that he says that love is always there, always around us, always part of us. It's whether we choose to shut it out or not, whether we choose to welcome it, release it, tap into it, I suppose. And he says that life's animating energy, the desire to love and be loved, is one of our most animating energies. So our hopes, our meaningful dreams rest on and return again and again to love. It's a very, very powerful thing. He goes on in this chapter there to talk about some of the people who haven't got the courage to love again, who have been bitter and broken and feel that love was stripped away. There's a whole heap of different scenarios there, but people who have allowed life to grind them down, I suppose, and therefore to kind of shut out love and become cynical or burnt out. He says, if we're loving to those around us, then we create the conditions for a positive environment and deeply fulfilling emotional and social life. Let us make that our aim. He goes on to talk about closing of the heart. So really just, you know, an extension of what he's just covered there, that we can have things that can impact on us right back from childhood, maybe the teacher that spoke to us unkindly, or classmates, later on in the workplace, as we start to grow up, people poke fun at us or embarrass us or shame us in some way, and all these things take their toll. They're like all these emotional scars that we've built up over time throughout life, and that can have an impact if we let it. Or we tend to put up a wall of protection so that we look after ourselves, we protect our heart so that we can't be hurt again by other people. But sometimes that means we're allowing a barrier to go up. You know, here's a bit of a Shakespearean quote: we let the slings and arrows from others hit our heart. Slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. That was in which one was that now? Hamlet, was it? I think it was, yes, in the to be or not to be speech. No amount of love, no matter the pain or hurt, is ever lost. So love is not confined to the human heart. It's always out there. We can't sort of hold it in or deny its existence. It's always there. It's whether or not we are tapping into it or allowing it to be manifested in our lives, I suppose, would be a way of putting it. And you do see some people who are negative, who have been burnt out, who have been hurt badly, and it tends to make them cynical or grumpy or hostile even. We all see it. We've all been it at some point, I'm sure. Where you're having a bad day, or you've had a bad week, or a run of circumstances that have occurred that have put you down, and you really don't feel like being warm and loving and friendly to everybody around you. But anyway, true divinity, he says, let us be transformed by this knowledge. Love was never absent from our life. So it's always there. We simply allowed our awareness of it to diminish. Now, this bit I highlighted in orange, people. Now, for those who just joined the call, I highlight a lot of stuff in yellow as I go through my book. And when I see a bit of something that leaps out at me, either something that I think I must take action on this, or it's gold, This was as close to a gold highlighter as I could find, which was orange. So as humans capable of vision and choice and will, we must acknowledge that anything of the past is past, that the sour feelings and negativity of yesterday needn't be our choices ever again, that the pain in our past is no longer present unless we choose to make it so. Very, very powerful, that, isn't it? If we're walking around carrying this baggage with us of a suitcase full of stuff that's happened to us and hurts, and people that poked fun at us at school, or parents that gave us a hard time, or a sibling that criticized us, or a boss that was particularly nasty to us, all that stuff, we're carrying it around with us unless we let it go. Don't burst into song yet, Stan. So it is in our self-protection that we often block the very thing that we desire. So that desire to love and be loved, we can block it out because of all this baggage that we're carrying around with us. So to open up to love once more, we must act on this knowledge. It was I who diminished love, and let go of the notion that others must right their past wrongs. Now that's very powerful, isn't it? We can't change anybody else. We can't fix anybody else. We can only work on ourselves. We might inspire other people through thoughts and actions and well, certainly deeds. But in this, he's saying we'll inspire people through our example, through being loving, through being kind, through focusing on all those positive, warm tendencies, those warm emotions, through putting love out there, through being nice to people. That eventually wins. Love always conquers over evil, they say in the movies, don't they? And love will win. It will come through. And certainly that's in keeping with all the religious teachings that are out there. You know, you can't fix anyone else. You can't be responsible for the actions of other people. You can only be responsible for yourself and for changing yourself. And that's the filter that we have to work on. The breakthrough, he says, all breakthroughs in life are merely letting through higher energy, in most cases that of love. I didn't highlight that, just leapt out at me for some reason, so I will highlight it now. When we, this is so poetic in his language. When we tear down the walls of worry and hurt, the bright beams of love may once more shine in and through us. Isn't that powerful? It often only takes a small ray of love from another to burn a permanent hole in the armor of sadness and negativity around our heart. So true, isn't it? The armor, we put on that armor to protect ourselves from being hurt or embarrassed or shamed again. And then sometimes it can be hard to break down. From within burns a divine fire to care again, connect again, live again. We can look past the faults of our brothers and sisters and love them. We can have compassion for an impatient spouse. We can find understanding for a struggling co-worker. We can love all humanity once more. Now, this is interesting because what he goes on to say, you know, there are some people around who are just a pain in the butt. And there are some people around who you wouldn't trust, you know, to feed your dog, let alone look after your house, or, you know, look after your children or whatever. So does this mean we must trust others instantly? No. So he's putting a differentiation, he's putting boundaries in here. When and how will we give ourselves permission to fully love others and ourselves immediately and without condition? But does this mean we must trust others instantly? No, it doesn't. So you can transmit love, he says, in a general feeling towards people, but you don't necessarily need to trust them. You can recognize people's shortcomings or their limitations, but you can still love them anyway. You can still be kind. You can still be. So love in this sense has such a broad meaning because it's how you treat people. It's how you respect people. So, you know, if someone's really done something horrible to you, would you go and throw your arms around them and say, it doesn't matter, I love you anyway? You probably wouldn't. But does that mean you feel hatred towards them, or that you want to do some harm or wish harm to them? Or can you let it go and be the bigger person and see that that maybe they're acting out of what's been done to them or what's hurt them? I know this could be quite a contentious issue, because you get right into the whole, you know, what about criminals, and what about people who commit assault or rape or murder, or, you know, would you love them? In this sense, what he's saying is you don't need to love their behavior, you don't need to love their actions, you don't need to love what they've done. You can put some boundaries around things, but he says we can forgive those who trespass against us without giving them our power. So this is powerful stuff. This is asking you to well, to forgive people who do awful things, I suppose. And that would be tough to do. If someone's done something really horrible to you, it would be very tough to do. And yet there are people who manage to do it. And I'm always in awe of those people, because I think if someone's murdered one of your family or something like that, how could you possibly not feel hatred towards them? How could you not want revenge? But in this, he's saying, take the higher road. And that would be a powerful thing and a very tough thing to do, I think. It's different with little transgressions, with, you know, someone who's made up a story about you or lied about you, or done something trivial. You can let that go quite easily. But the big things, that would be hard. That's just my thoughts on it. We'll come back to that in a minute for everyone to throw in their comments. But what this means is that we can have a divine intent for everyone we meet, whether or not they deserve it, have asked for it, or will reciprocate it. So it's an unconditional status. It's an unconditional form of feeling. Love, like any virtue, must be a conscious affair, willed forth, chosen from among all the angelic and wretched impulses available at any moment in the human condition. And to ascend to greatness and become generous with love, we must be aware of our own weakness and propensity for evil. By never forgetting that we can teeter into darkness, we can remember to look for the light. By remembering the dangers of cruelty, we must will ourselves to be compassionate and loving. Wow, that's powerful, isn't it? That's very, I would say, almost biblical. To sense and amplify love, we do not need to love ourselves, though let that be our goal as well. Now, this is powerful, because it's often said that we must love ourselves before we can love other people. He's saying, no, don't wait for that perfect day. He's saying, should love be kept from anyone simply because we have insecurities? No, love is perfect. We do not need to be. We shall not wait for the splendid, mythical, bright day when we are perfect and always bursting with happiness before allowing our own ray of divinity to shine through to others. That's very, very powerful, I think. That's really saying, look, we can have stuff going wrong in our life, and life will never be perfect anyway. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's always perfect. It's exactly the way it's meant to be, because even when we're having a hard time, maybe there's a lesson in that. Maybe there's something we're meant to learn. Maybe there's something we need to grow through. And we, in any case, even if we think we're not having a perfect day or a perfect situation, we can still be kind to people. We can still be empathetic. We can still be all the higher levels of emotions. We can still be a nice person, even though we might be going through a real tough time. So it's all about the intent, the divine intent. So if we wish to be a person of greatness, it will require a stunning release of love into the world. Who doesn't want to be a person of greatness? That's an awesome aspiration, isn't it? So love for or from another must be sensed through action, not intent. Thinking is not love, giving is. So we might think that we want to be nice to people, but actually being nice to people is what makes the difference. So which choice we make will determine the quality of our lives, the depth of our relationships, and the hope of our human family. Well, there you go. That's what I've picked out as the sort of key points from that chapter. I'll throw it open to you guys for those of you who have read it, or even if you haven't read it, but you just want to comment on anything that's resonated with you from what I've just picked out there. Whoever would like to go first, to, you know, put your hand up or yell out. Any thoughts, anyone resonate particularly with what was just covered there?
I resonated with this chapter from the first word to the end. I love this chapter. I actually think I enjoy amplifying love more than defeating my demons, I must say.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I really am beginning to understand this concept for myself in ways that I hadn't before. And I too had what I used to call the patch over my heart, so that I wouldn't get hurt, because, you know, people do not nice things. And as of late, the patch has not had to be there. And I can love people, and people do things that are awful. And that's because we live in an unloving world sometimes. And I just hope that us as a group spread enough love that maybe somebody who's on the fence about doing something not very nice may decide not to. And that could be a change.
There's definitely a power in both in collective consciousness, but also in the ripple effect. We talked about this, I think, last week, in the butterfly effect. If you're nice to somebody, it brightens their day, and then there's more of a chance that they're going to be nice to the next person they encounter. So we can't change the whole world, but we can change maybe one person's day just with our interaction, with us being vibrant and bubbly and kind and all the nice things that we talked about in this chapter. If we can be pleasant to people, maybe that turns their day around. Maybe they were having a bad day, and us being nice to them has made them go, oh, hang on a minute, wake up. I don't need to carry on being in a bad mood. I don't need to carry on being horrible. When I used to run a backpackers in Perth for 14 years, and I'd see it all the time. You'd pick up people from the airport that had just been traveling, and they were grumpy and tired and fed up, and, you know, having a bad time getting here, and or just worn out. And I'd be chatting to them in the bus on the way back, and by the time I got them back to the backpackers, they transformed from being horrible and grumpy and tired into happy people. And if I hadn't managed to do it within 24 hours of being around the rest of the people in the backpackers, the energy just lifted them, and they were like a totally different person. Even someone who was hostile almost, or complaining or bitter, within 24 hours they'd had a personality transplant and turned into a nice person. And it's because we put out this whole energy, with starting with me as the leader, but it was all my staff that was embedded into all of them to create that atmosphere, you know, and it transmits from one person to another, for sure. Anyone else? Thanks, Wendy, for that. That's awesome. Anyone else had any comments about that chapter, or anything that was covered in it, how it affected them? No comments at the moment. That's all right. Then we'll speed on, and we'll go through to the next chapter, which is chapter 8, or Declaration 8. Again, another powerful one. We shall inspire greatness. So there's a great Albert Schweitzer quote right at the beginning of this chapter here. I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve. Now, there was a man who served, wasn't he? He was the man who dealt with the leper colonies and loved people that nobody else would go near. So he was a very courageous man. Again, this powerful speech that he has, and I've highlighted this bit in orange, people. From the squalor of a contaminated moral environment must surface an honorable few unafraid to challenge mediocrity and change the direction of the world. Let us be among those brave few. Isn't that an awesome statement? The squalor of a contaminated moral environment. Well, I think you alluded to that, Wendy, that the world is certainly not a perfect place, is it? There's a lot of stuff going on. There's always war and hunger and people being cruel to each other and all sorts of stuff going on. But does that mean we can accept that and just go, well, that's just the way the world is? Or can we do something about it? Can we change the direction of the world? Well, that's what it takes, is a few people to step up, isn't it? It takes a few of us to say, no, this is not acceptable, and that's not how we're going to be. So like the starfish story last week, we can throw the one back into the water and save that one. So each person we encounter, we can start that ripple effect by being nice, by amplifying love, by being pleasant to people, by being the best version of ourselves. I know some people find that a bit of a cliched expression, but we can only really work on ourselves, and that's the starting point. So our striving for a better life and a better world can leave others inspired if it comes from a genuine place of service, or diminished if it comes from a place of greed. So service is a bit of a point of distinction there. We can serve people, but if we're only doing it for our own, for our own ends, then it's not going to be as powerful. It's not going to change and leave others inspired as it would if we come from a genuine place of wanting to do the right thing and serve people in some way, to contribute, to be a member of society who contributes. We must have the courage to ask, in this confused era, am I seeking to be a role model on a daily basis for all of those I love and serve? Am I lifting up those around me? Am I in some way elevating humanity by leading others to see and activate their potential? Am I truly living a great life? Now that one really struck a chord with me, because that's been my goal as a coach, is to influence and inspire people so that they can achieve their potential. And in doing that, I achieve my potential. That's what I see as my purpose, is what I'm here to do, is to pass on whatever I've learned in some way that I can benefit other people, because that will make at least the impact that I can have on making the world a better place. So seeking greatness and doing the work to deserve it must come back into our collective consciousness. So it is really, we will inspire greatness if we start with being the best versions of ourselves. If we treat people around us and people that we encounter the right way, and are generous and loving and caring and all the positive emotions that he's mentioned before, we can at least change our little part of the world, the people around us. The world's people are in peril, he says. It is a troubled world, this subchapter here. We no doubt live in a noisy, numb, narcissistic age. Boy, do we ever. You look at the examples from our politicians and the examples from our so-called heroes, the rock stars, the people, the social media influencers. It is a noisy, numb, narcissistic age, he says. The talents and attentions of the majority are not invested in personal mastery and social responsibility, but squandered on games, voyeurism, and base sensationalism. You only have to look at a news bulletin, and now we're asking ourselves, how much of this news bulletin can I believe? How much has been spun to suit the agendas of the people that have the power? So we are in a kind, I love this the way he words this, we're in a kind of humanity-wide midlife crisis. Gone are the big visions, here are the quick wins and the sure things. Effort has lost out to entitlement. In the transition to our age of self-adoration and conceit, the page turned long ago on the dreams to rise as a people. Wow. Because most people don't want to hold themselves or others to a higher standard, because the former requires discipline and the latter invites conflict. So to change ourselves requires discipline. To try to inspire others or to provoke change in others might invite conflict. He goes on to explain what he means by that and what he means by leadership. What must I finally face and fix in my own life? Do I need to eat healthier? Then let me do it. Do I need to treat my kids with greater patience and kindness? Then let me begin. Are there tasks I've been putting off that could help my family? Then let me complete them. In addressing our own lives, we ready our minds and spirits to address the world. And this is just brilliant, this bit, this summary here. There is no great philosopher or leader who has not taken care to remind us that we must be the change we seek in the world. I think that's the famous Gandhi quote, isn't it? We must be the change we seek in the world. So it starts with us. We are, if we want to change the world, we have to change ourselves first. We have to work on us. So that old saying about getting your own house in order, well, this is what he mentions here. Standing apart. Once we get our homes in order, we must seek to reconnect with the world. Our aim must be to help others find their own meaningful projects and causes. Definitely struck a chord with me as a coach there. We shall stand out by being brave while they are fearful. While they are elitists, we shall be humble and in the field with those we lead. While they have abandoned feeling, we shall live with fire and draw in the world so desperate for authentic emotion and connection. While they lack vibrancy, we shall exude it. While they bow to the extremists and communicate with low intelligence, we will bring a third perspective that is collaborative and conscious. While they lack dignity and integrity, we shall maintain ours. While they have remained unaccountable and refused to own their actions and results, we shall always own ours. That key tenet there of taking responsibility for where you're at in life, everything that all the choices, the little choices that you've made throughout your life have got you to this point where you are today. And rather than blaming the rest of the world or blaming the politicians or blaming the person who wronged you, by taking responsibility for it and going, well, I took that advice, or I did this, or I did that. I'm here now because I made those choices. The power in that is that if you got yourself into whatever situation you're in now and you're not happy with it, you also then have the power to get out of it by making better choices. So it is actually very empowering, even though it might be tough to do when it's easier to blame other people or circumstances. So while they have remained unaccountable and refused to own their actions and results, we shall always own ours. That's what he's saying there. While they are greedy, we shall be simple and fight for those who suffer from lack. While they dismiss the uninitiated, we shall make them our friends and advisors. While they have not experienced the power of a movement, we shall begin a movement of our own. No matter the position we hold at work, at school, or in our community, we shall show the world an alternative example by always caring enough to be remarkable and unifying. In a world struggling for hope and wanting for light and leadership, we shall seek to shine as beacons. Who wants to be a beacon? A shining light. Powerful stuff. So let us write down some of this stuff. Write down some more. Do this exercise and evaluate what you want. So what beliefs and causes will we support? How will we approach the issues and problems of the world in new ways? What will inspire a movement and how can we rise? Interesting questions, aren't they? So as he says, this is not new territory. There's a well-blazed trail to greatness from a long line of hardworking, honorable men and women who gave us the freedoms that we enjoy today. So starting off with gratitude again for where we're at. But what were their secrets to success in achieving great things and inspiring others to contribute? They were unfailing in their demands for action and excellence. So all the great leaders that you think of, you know, the Gandhis, the Mandelas, the people who've really made an impact on the world, they were unfailing in their demands for action and excellence. Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, the list goes on. And now you've got people who are demanding and unfailing in their demands for action and excellence. People in our business leaders like Elon Musk or Richard Branson, who are pushing forward and making things happen that don't exist at the moment. You know, they're putting spaceships out there and planning ahead for establishing a colony on the moon or on Mars and so on. It needs people, the world needs people to lead, to step up and to say, we can do this. Demand means setting expectations, communicating with candor, constantly holding people to high standards by incentivizing those who rise to the challenge, while simultaneously calling out and coaching those who do not. So it doesn't mean being nasty to people who are not achieving the standard. It means not accepting the poor standard and giving them the tools and techniques or the coaching that they need to improve. And that might require courage, because it's easier not to bother, or it's easier not to risk the conflict potentially of the person feeling criticized. But it's all in how you do it, isn't it? It's how we speak to people. So when people do something wrong, they need to be told they're doing something wrong. They don't need to be battered. Well, some people might, I don't know, I'm just joking. But we do need to, if we want a higher standard, there was an old saying in management, or an expression, that if you set the standard here, but you accept that, eventually you'll end up getting that, you know. But if you keep pushing that or pulling that standard up higher and reminding people, no, this is the standard, then you will lift that standard. But once you start settling for a lower standard, the bar will go lower and lower. So demand means setting expectations, communicating with candor, so holding those people to account, but calling out and coaching those who do not. So giving the people the support, the encouragement, the tools and techniques so they can improve. This is what a virtuous world requires. Candid people willing to hold high standards for themselves and others. So it starts with, it's no good criticizing other people, telling them what they need to do if you're not doing it yourself. So get your own house in order first. Be the example, be the guiding light. Let us know the challenges people face, but let us always hold them in high regard and respect. So you can call people out for not doing things right if you do it with respect, and from a place of love, from a place of good intent, from a place of helping them to be the best version of themselves. So we're treading a fine line sometimes, because you don't want to offend people. You don't want to, maybe some things you might think, well, it's not my business to tell them what to do there. But I think he's talking more in terms of when it's when you like, you might be in a management role, leadership role. Or it might not be a formal leadership role. It might be an informal. You know, you've formed a committee or something to, I don't know, sort out the Boy Scouts function or the Girl Guides function or something like that. But it could be any environment where you're working with other people, collaborating with other people, and you're assuming a mantle of leadership by your actions, by your example, by your approach. So what exactly shall we demand of others? The same we demand of ourselves: conduct becoming of a noble character, attention to both our shortcomings and our strengths, a ready willingness to be excellent in our service to the world, even when it becomes tiresome and difficult. We will do this by inspiring and challenging others to act with wisdom and virtue in any part of their lives upon which we have influence. If we have their ear, let us sow the seeds of greatness by inspiring the 9 virtues of greatness. So these I have again highlighted in orange, the 9 virtues of greatness. So here we go. Let us demand honesty. Let us demand responsibility. Let us demand intelligence. Well, that's an interesting one, because intelligence is again a very broad word, isn't it? but there's a lot of people who are lazy, cynical, or cynical, who make what we could call the keyboard warriors, the people who make judgments without necessarily having access to all the facts, without doing the research. And that's become a bit of a symbol of our modern society, hasn't it? That people are quite happy to throw around their opinions on things without doing any research or any actual fact finding before they open their mouths. If we are to be great, we must take responsibility to help others learn, explore, think critically, and grow in wisdom. Let us demand excellence. For those destined for greatness, all things must be done well and to completion. We must strive for the highest levels of work and achievement in all that we do. So my father used to say, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And that's certainly a value that I've held true. When I do something, I try to do it to the best of my ability. Now, this could be contentious as well, and it talks here about those who do not share our interest in excellence must be left behind, as they will not contribute meaningfully and they cannot be led on our particular path. We have no need to worry about cutting poor performers loose. They will quickly be picked up and find their own place. This is not being dismissive or cruel or unappreciative. It is simply allowing people to find out where their level of contribution and talent is really needed. So that old saying, birds of a feather flock together. Surround yourself with people who are thinking critically, who are demanding higher standards of themselves and others, who are committed to self-improvement and to making a difference, contributing. If you've got some of those people in your life who you might think are toxic, or have that, you know, call them energy vampires, the people with that sort of that are always whinging and complaining and criticizing whatever you do and coming up with all the negatives, do you need those people around you? No, cut them loose. And it doesn't mean being horrible to people. It doesn't mean neglecting people. It means not having that negative influence around you all the time. You can still care about them. You can still check on how they are, but just cut back on the contact that you have with them, because it's going to drag you down. On our own journey, we are merely choosing to surround ourselves with those who align with our values and our mission. And I've had to do that in past years, is let go a few long-term friends that who really were not going to change, not going to improve, not going to grow. And that's their journey. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Let us demand courage. We must defeat our own fears and instill the same strength into those we care for or serve. We can help others favor action by asking, what have you done about it? As much as we ask, what do you think about it? That thing about not just thinking, but acting. There are a lot of people who are happy to whinge about situations and complain and carry on, but don't want to do anything to change it. Let us demand respect for others. The glow of respect nurtures all other virtues of human connection: kindness, compassion, fairness, empathy, love. We must show tremendous respect to those we seek to inspire. So we've got to meet people where they are, haven't we? We can't judge other people by our standards. We can encourage them to lift their standards, but it's not our role to judge them. It's our role to inspire them and to lead where we can. Do not tolerate any behavior that is dismissive, cruel, or condescending. Should we fail in this, then we ourselves become unworthy of respect. Let us demand vigilance. We must constantly say, pay attention, know what we're doing, know where we must do better, and know what stands in our way. Let us demand service. Service is the intent to do good and do well for others, to be of genuine, warm assistance in their time of need. Do the people around us care deeply for others? Do they want to help people? Do they worry about getting it right and wowing those we strive with and serve? Those without their virtue without this virtue in their hearts must not be within our circle. Remove them at once, as the selfish and unconcerned will rip us from glory. That's a good point, isn't it? To look around your group of friends and ask, what standards do they have? You know, and people are a reflection of us. If we surround ourselves with good, positive people who have a good attitude and want to contribute and want to help people, then that shows that we're on the right path as well. Let us demand unity. We must always remind others we're in this together. The moment we succeed is when our people say us or we more than I or me. When we see our people celebrating wins together, dining together, crying together, striving together. So these are the points that we've just covered: honesty, responsibility, intelligence, excellence, courage, respect, vigilance, service, and unity. These are the virtues of greatness that we must exemplify and expect, and leave behind those people who fail to achieve those standards. Not everyone needs to be part of every initiative, and not everyone can live up to the standards of excellence we need in order to achieve the remarkable. And so let's find those who are truly committed and capable, and leave the rest to find their own passions and pursuits. So if people don't want to come on the journey with you to your journey towards greatness, then that's okay. That's their journey. Let them be on their journey. And he concludes the chapter with, let us then, out of respect for the blood and hard-won triumphs of those who have inspired us, and in duty to those who we love and serve, and those we shall never know who await inspiration, arise now and become great. Powerful chapter. Who's ready to arise now and become great? Has that had any, what impact has that had on you, listening to those words? Anybody like to go and comment on what they think?
I would like to. Oh my God, that's amazing. It kind of reminds us of how to win and influence people, right? And being compassionate. When you were explaining the love and stuff, it kind of made me wonder, like, in order for us to make this world, what I took out of this is, even if people are rude, mean, or not in your own core, going through your like your core values, but being able to accept them without judging them, it's a way of expressing that love, right? And that acceptance, and probably by that, it will allow them to change their own being. They're like, wait, because a lot of people, I still believe that hurt people, right? And then you keep hurting them or being mean to them, what are they gonna do? Feed that, right? So if we want to make the change, I love that where it says, you don't have to be perfect, because I kept daunting on myself that I gotta love myself. So in order for me to love, and sometimes I keep telling myself, sometimes I do things for others more than myself, and I understand that it's that love I want to receive, right? Because it's what you reap, you sow. And being able to be amazing in that aspect is, everything is a practice, right? Even if you're not in that perfect stage, you're practicing to be that person. I totally love that. It was so Spanish, and the words that you used, it really influenced me. It's not about resistance. Oh, you should do this, you should do that. What about thinking in this way? What about that? It was like a harmonious words with this book. I feel it's just so graceful and explained in a way you could be like, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, of course I want to be like that. Of course I want to help. I loved it. Thank you, Tony.
Absolutely, Yanni, I completely agree with you. His words, as I said, they're quite sort of poetic, and I think you summed up really well, graceful. It really, it sort of, you sort of floating along, listening to what he's saying and being inspired by it and going, yeah, that's what I want. Yeah, I want to be like that. it really does make you want to improve and to set an example, and to be less judgmental, but at the same time not accept lower standards. So there's sort of a conflicting thing there, you know, about not judging other people, but at the same time you have to sort of judge them in order to go, do they share the values that I share, or are they behaving the way that I want to behave, or they're aspiring to the level of service, contribution, and, you know, the general way that I want to conduct my life. Do they?
I see it more as accepting where they came from, just as accepting where you come from and moving from today and to the future of who we want to be. It's like, it's kind of like accepting them, you know, and onto the limb, okay, yeah, you fucked up, but without the judgment part, but in influence way, kind of be like, we can be better, you know?
It's
like
more,
we can do so much better. And it's without the judgment part. I don't know how to express it, but something like that, right?
Yeah, I think the words I just came up with in my brain when you said that was, it's like you have to evaluate people rather than judge them. So when you use the word evaluate, of course, it's referring to values. So what are your values? Do they share those values, or are their values in conflicting with your values? But if they share your values, you might be here on the journey and they might be there, but you can inspire them or pull them up through your example and through your coaching or through your encouragement and through being kind and exemplifying what you want to achieve. Thanks, Yanni. That's absolutely brilliant. Faith, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I would like to add something, and probably my tribe of ladies there is not surprised at all. On the love part first, we are love. That's in my opinion, our DNA from God. That is the fundamental implant we get from the Creator, that we all share and have an attachment to each other. And we need love. We need to love and be loved as much as we need oxygen, water, and food. And indeed, if we don't have love, we don't care about those other three things. We need love and we need to be loved. But, and it's just a wonder or a question, we get knocked about after we come here. And babies, anybody who's been around a baby, babies are looking for love and acceptance and getting their needs met in a good time. So to learn to choose anything opposite that or contrary to that, we have to learn it. So maybe part of our biggest journey is to learn how to go from coming in love and going through this journey where we get kicked out of love to finding a way to come back into love. Maybe that's the courageous journey we're all on. I heard this saying, which I like a lot. We can do hard things, but you got to pick your hard things. So after you get your heart broken, you can pick closing off and building a wall, and I'm never going to love anybody again, to protect yourself. And that's choosing a hard thing, because it's hard to be lonely and it's hard not to be loved. It's hard not to let anyone in. Or you can choose the hard thing of loving again. So we choose our hard thing. And the hard thing that we choose to put our courage to, can affect our lives in dynamic ways. And hopefully we can find our path to choose the ways that will enhance us and help us grow. And in this second part, and I'll just wrap it up real quick, I don't have enough friends to turn anybody away that's really my friend that doesn't agree with me. My criteria for being my friend is, you must love me and like me and be nice to me. You don't have to believe all my beliefs. You don't have to be as generous as I am. You don't have to think exactly like me. I will allow you to be you, but you do need to love me and be nice to me. And that's my criteria for friendship. And that's all I got to say on it.
Excellent. Thank you, Faith. That was a really valuable contribution. Very much so. Anyone want to add something to that or follow that?
I think Faith covered just about everything I wanted to say, but we always seem to be in the same groove with each other. And
Funny that.
yeah, and the one thing I did like, and I felt like was new tools for my toolbox, and not because I didn't have them, but because I didn't see them in that light, was the 9 virtues. I really did enjoy that. And, you know, I took those kind of the virtues for granted that I did have them, but I never really put them into act that I should have expectations from those around me to practice those virtues with me. And I kind of like the way that he put that, and that really put another tool in my toolbox.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. I think he really does. Well, I certainly felt inspired to want to evaluate those things, I suppose, and check for myself. Am I being that? Am I doing that? And then looking around at my friends, immediately I started with each word that came out, with each virtue, I could immediately think of one of my friends who has that virtue, you know. So I feel confident that I've surrounded myself with really good people who do their best. At least they may not, of course, none of us are perfect, and certainly I know I'm not perfect. So, but we're all on a journey of trying to be better. And at least if people are trying to be better and trying to put into practice all those virtues, then they're certainly on the right journey, on the right path. I think he's more referring to people that, you know, are definitely not trying to put any of those virtues into practice.
True, but a lot of times I find that if you can somehow just pick out the light in the people around you, you can brighten them up too. And they behave differently around you because you see their light instead of seeing their darkness. And everybody has their own darkness. And that's often why some people get cynical and angry, because nobody sees the other person that they are. They don't take the time for it. And sometimes you can do that and change somebody who would otherwise be an adversary into somebody that's on your team. Not always, but if you take the time, you get loyalty from people like that. And I try to do that, to see people for who they are, not what's happened to them.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Wendy. I think years ago I went on a course with Dr. John DeMartini. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of him or read any of his books or done any of his work. John DeMartini taught me years ago that whenever you see something bad in someone, always firstly look at where in myself am I seeing that happen, you know, because people are a reflection of yourself. But then immediately shift to, well, that might be the bad thing about them, but what's the good thing about them? So just what you were saying, immediately look to the light, look to the things that are positive, that you can find that you like about that person, or that where they're exemplifying being good, and that immediately counteracts that sort of negativity that you're feeling towards them, or that sort of negative emotion that's coming up. But then look at yourself and go, well, if they're pushing my button, where am I exhibiting that behavior? When am I being like that? And because you don't like it in yourself, and you're seeing it in them, but it's really kind of reminding you that you don't like being like that yourself. So
yeah, there's something in the Bible, like lest thee judge, or when you're judging others, you're actually judging yourself, because it's a mirror reflection.
Yeah.
I don't, well, it's some kind of Bible verse, but
the speck in your eye is one. I'm sure Faith can fill us in on that one, about the plank in your own, wasn't it, seeing the speck in your neighbor's eye but having a plank in your own?
yeah, exactly. So yes, and I think that by putting these into practice and not really putting yourself out there to be trampled upon, but be a stronger person, be able to say, hey, if you're going my way, come with me. And be that person that would bring others along, you
Yes.
know, to a higher level.
Yes, you've hit on something again there that I really got from this is that coming back to setting boundaries too. Just because you want to be nice to everyone or love everybody doesn't mean you tolerate something that's just not right, or, you know, intolerable behavior. You can still set standards. You can still be nice to people, but you can still hold them to account for, you know, for falling short of a standard that is commonly accepted. So in other words, you don't tolerate people who do horrible things to other people, or, you know, that kind of thing. You still have to maintain an expectation of what is going to work for society. Otherwise society will, we can have all these loving people who care about everyone, and there's people going around murdering everybody and, you know, not being held to account.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anyone else want to add anything to this morning? Because I'm conscious of time and we are running over time now. All right, so 2 very powerful chapters and some great contributions there. Thank you everybody for your attendance. Even if you haven't spoken much this morning, your presence has been felt, and you've contributed just by being here in the group. And I hope you got something positive from it. Sandra, you're back on camera. Did you want to add anything?
No, I was just going to thank you. For me, it's been a lot of the work I've already been working on in the past. And so it was more of an affirmation and a reminder of the journey I've been on, and I'm continuing on in my work. Yeah.
And that is the beauty of it, isn't it? The more of these books that we cover, is they are an affirmation and a reminder of what we may already know, or we know but we've forgotten, or we've taken our eye off the ball. And so it's putting our eye back on the ball and going, let's be this, let's do what we said we were going to do. Let's achieve the standard that we said we were going to hold up for ourselves. So next week we will be covering the last chapter 9 and doing a sort of overview of what in general we think the book has, how it's impacted us, how we felt about it. And then just to give you some forewarning, the book I've selected for the week after that going forwards, we're going to review Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So another powerful book. Thank you again, everybody, for coming along this morning. Great to see some newcomers from all around the world, Canada, America, Australia. It's great to have that global connection, and I hope you've all got something for it, and I hope you can go forward in this next week and put some of this into practice. And if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, grab it and read it. It really is powerful, this book, and certainly something to live up to. Thank you, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us over.
Anytime, you're always welcome.